She told me my son couldn't come because there was no room in a 7-bedroom house. And then I found out who'd really been sleeping in his room for a month. My dad called me in March, sounding lighter than he had in years. He wanted to gather the whole family at the lake house for his 60th birthday, one last big summer before he sold the property. Just make it work, he said. I was thrilled. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, it'll be easier without the little ones this time. I asked if he meant just my son Caleb, who's 7. He said yes. The house couldn't handle extra kids running around, and money was tight after the property tax hike. My husband Drew told me to let it go, that one weekend apart from Caleb wouldn't kill either of us, and that maybe I needed the break more than I realized. So I agreed. I dropped Caleb with my in-laws, used 2 vacation days I'd been saving, and drove 4 hours upstate by myself, already feeling guilty every mile. My younger brother Josh had been posting nonstop in the family group chat for weeks. Kayak rentals, s'mores kits, matching towels for the crew. He lives 2 hours from the lake with his wife Priya and their 3 kids. Every time I asked Dad for details, I got one-line answers. Nothing fancy, just family. I paid my own gas and groceries because Dad said the property taxes had wiped out his budget for the summer. When I pulled into the gravel driveway, I heard splashing before I even opened the car door. A little girl ran across the yard in a life vest, screaming with laughter. I stood there a second too long. Through the screen door, I could see pool noodles stacked against the wall, a booster seat at the table, a stuffed rabbit on the porch swing that wasn't mine. My stepmom looked up from the sink and went still. Oh, you made good time. Josh came out drying his hands on a towel. Hey, long drive? I asked him, straight out why there were kids everywhere when I'd been told this was an adults-only weekend. Nobody answered right away. Dad finally set his coffee down. We didn't have room for Caleb too. Josh's kids needed the space more. I asked what that meant. Priya jumped in. Josh had lost a client account. Things were tight. They needed this more than we did. There it was again. Josh always needed more. Josh always got the exception. I looked around that house. 5 bedrooms, a boathouse, a dock big enough for 6 kayaks, and thought about my son sitting on my in-laws' couch, asking when he'd get to see the lake. I asked my dad quietly if he'd even thought about Caleb once while planning this. He said I was making it a bigger deal than it was. I said I'd taken unpaid leave to be there. Nobody had an answer for that either. I got back in my car before I said something I couldn't take back. I stayed at a motel off the highway that night, more hollow than angry. When Drew called, I told him everything. He got quiet, then asked who actually owned the lake house now that Grandpa was gone. I hadn't thought about it. Grandpa had put it in a family trust years ago, meant to rotate use fairly among all his grandchildren's families. I called my cousin Renee the next morning, and she mentioned she'd seen Josh's Instagram, a video from 3 weeks earlier captioned, "Our summer home away from home. Priya's kids' toys already unpacked in what used to be the guest room. Not a weekend trip. A month-long stay. Quietly funded through the trust account Dad managed." I called the trust attorney. 2 weeks later, an audit found Dad had been pulling maintenance funds to cover Josh's family's extended stays for over a year. Always timed around whenever Josh needed it, while the rest of us were told the house was too full. Dad was removed as trustee. My share of reimbursed funds came out to just under $9,000. Dad left me 4 voicemails. Josh texted that I'd blown up the family over nothing. I didn't answer either one. That August, Drew, Caleb, and I rented a small cabin on a different lake. Half the size, half the view, all ours. The first night, Caleb waded into the shallow water and turned back to look at me. "Is this trip actually just for us?" I told him yes, and for once it was true.